the morning session, we will hear 3 distinguished keynote speakers who will each have 30 minutes at their disposal, followed by 10 minutes question and answer session. And we are due to have a coffee break at approximately 11:30. Before we proceed to our first keynote speaker, I'd like to ask you to hold your questions until after each presentation. And there are 2 ways of asking a question. You can raise your hand and use an open microphone, or there are some pieces of paper inside your folders. So just put down your question, give it to our assistant, Kadri, can't see her at the moment, and for me to read. So, and please keep your questions brief and specific. And now, without a further delay, I would like you to meet an extraordinary man who has an international reputation for his work in the field of enterprise, entrepreneurship, and small business development. He has worked closely with many international organizations and governments. He has worked as an advisor, teacher, and a trainer in many countries all over the world. He is the first holder of the European Entrepreneurship Education Award 2012 and the holder of the Queen's Lifetime Achievement in Enterprise Award. His recent work has focused on entrepreneurship education at all levels of the education field, and he has developed and run several management programs concerning the development of entrepreneurial universities. Ladies and gentlemen, you may never get a chance like this again. Please join me in welcoming Professor Allan Gibb.
Right. I thought you instead of extraordinary, I thought you were going to say extra large.
Oh, that too.
Extra tall man. Yeah. Thank you very much for inviting me here. Thank you, Krista. Thank you, Kaya. I had a great day yesterday with some people from outside, some students. Just talking about how we should teach enterprise and entrepreneurship, and had a lot of fun. It's really quite interesting. And then I had a great meal last night and an even greater conversation at this wonderful restaurant beside the wall. So thank you very much for that. It's the first time I've been in Estonia. I worked quite a lot in Latvia in the past, and I've always wanted to come here, and I had a great friend who was asking me to visit for the last 25 years. So it's a great time to be here. Thank you for inviting me. Is it all right if I don't? I don't need that, do I? You can hear me.
Yes.
I don't need that. I might say something naughty. In fact, I will say something naughty. I should really have said at the beginning, Tallinn quick. I'm a professor and I'm supposed to be very clever. I'll translate that into English for you. It means good morning, everybody. In case you didn't understand my Estonian, Tallinn quick. I also learned to say Tanan, but I leave that to the end. But I've written it all there, so. Right. It's new ways of thinking about entrepreneurship and enterprise. And I really want to argue a case with you this morning that enterprise and entrepreneurship are necessary conditions for innovation. That you can't have innovation without enterprise and entrepreneurship. I'm going to define those, and I think my colleagues are going to go even farther in discussing that in the teaching education context. So it's very much, can I go to the next slide, please? Oh no, all right, sorry, I've got to do this now, haven't I? Yeah? No? So that's the proposition. But I want to talk about innovation in a different way from which it is conventionally used. When you see all the stuff from European Union and OECD and all of these big organizations, They usually talk about innovation in the technology transfer sense, or the technical sense, or what have you. In fact, innovation is just new ways of doing things. So I want really to, if I go back to Schumpeter, who is the guy who started all this about creative destruction and entrepreneurship and so on, in fact, it's a problem in many ways because he tied the whole concept into economics. And I think entrepreneurship is much more important than economics, than being in economics. And really the two things that are linked with Schumpeter is that it's important when you're living in conditions of uncertainty and complexity. In other words, entrepreneurship is, and I'm going to say a little bit more about this later, is a condition, you need that kind of behavior, the more uncertain and the more complex. And if you think about society, how uncertain and complex it's getting around the world, you realize we need more and more entrepreneurship. And that we need, something's happened, the letter slipped, we need an entrepreneurial personal response from people, but also an organizational response. In other words, organizations are changing all the time in the light of the complexities and uncertainties. And that often means that we combine resources and combine ways of doing things in order to achieve change. And that's what we call innovation. And that innovation is that kind of innovation. And I want to talk about this with an example of the university. Because at the moment I developed and directed the first of a series of programs for leaders of universities in the UK, but also from people in Europe, vice-chancellors or pro-vice-chancellors, senior staff of the university, on leading the entrepreneurial university. And one of the things that excited me about coming here was to come to Krista's entrepreneurial university to get a flavour of it and perhaps to take back some anecdotes, steal something to take back to England. But actually, I want to discuss innovation in this sense of changes in the way and innovating in the way people feel and think. People changing, innovating their feeling stuff of university, about what a university is. Yes, it's moving from what a university used to be to what a university is going to be, and that's a lot of feeling in that. Lots of defenders defending the old concept of the university. It's also about ways of thinking. It's moving from, in many ways, from thinking in little boxes, or little silos, which universities are in, often organised like, to broader ways of thinking. It's about the way you lead the university. We're having new brands of entrepreneurial presidents and leaders of universities, and when people are appointing leaders, they're looking for entrepreneurial people. We talk about this. New ways of learning. Learning, so I'm going to expand on this. Universities no longer are the dominant source of learning in the world. They used to be, they're not now. It's all there in the internet, globally. New ways of teaching, with the advent of information technology and these MOOCs, these massive online open courses, fantastic ways of, new ways of learning and teaching, combining resources in a different way, working with outside organizations, in different combinations which universities are doing, organizing the university in a way that allows entrepreneurship to develop and grow, which is a challenge. Some universities are organizing themselves almost wholly around, if you go to Arizona State University, it's done away with all the disciplines. It just focuses on areas of strategic, cultural, economic and social need in society, and has multidisciplinary departments, which also bring in practitioners from outside, so it's solving problems, relating, putting out what you're learning and having a debate about what you're learning to a wider audience, and again, all of that leads to change in feelings about what we're trying to do. So I'm talking about innovation
in all of these things, ways of doing those things, not just innovation in the technical sense. So you have to buy that. How many of you are from universities or related to universities, studying in universities? Ah, so choosing the university for this was a good thing, because a lot of you are hear about that. Yeah, so let's go a bit further. So why do we need enterprise and entrepreneurship in order to innovate? I want to say something about that in the university context. This is a diagram that I use frequently with businesses. Because if you look at organizational contingency, organizational theory, it just says something simple, like you need to organize your business in relation to the kind of task environment, the dynamics of the task environment. Some environments are very, very simple. Some I'm running an ice cream store, or I'm a funeral director, or a corner shop. I'm operating in a fairly certain, simple environment. And if I'm, like my son, operating with a small, high-tech mobile phone software company with staff, 20 staff, but in 6 different locations around the world, all tied up with the internet and flying off and working up all kinds of hours. It's a very complex and uncertain environment, you know. Products changing massively, the technology is changing, the competition's dire, and so on and so forth. So basically, organizations need to be designed around the environment. And when I'm working with small companies, I often talk to them about the kind of environment that they're in terms of customers, suppliers, the technology, the resources, and get them to position themselves in here, and then look at the future and say, how's this going to change? And what do you need to be like? And the reason is, of course, this is where entrepreneurship comes in, that you need to be highly entrepreneurial in a very uncertain and complex environment. If you're working in a very low, certain, simple environment, you don't need a lot of entrepreneurial organization or ability. Although actually some people move out from here and experiment and innovate and move up or around this diagram. And we can do that with companies, and we can have a lot of fun, and we can make them think. But entrepreneurship is a sort of contingent thing. Either it's response to the environment, or you want to make something happen, but it's to do with dealing with uncertainty and complexity in the environment. And I want this can be applied to anyone. I can apply this to an individual. You know, in the old days, there were jobs for life, in banking or government or all kinds of places like that, and nice, steady pension schemes. And I was brought up in a region with large companies, and people who were in the large companies could almost tell you at the age of 50 what kind of salary they would have, what kind of grade they would be at, and what kind of pension they would get. All those have gone now. People are changing, the estimate is people change jobs 12 times in occupations and industries that are globally mobile, that they probably marry 2 or 3 times, they have different kinds of partners and different kinds of families, and all kinds of things are uncertain and complex in this individual environment, and they're moving to a more uncertain environment. Everybody has to be more entrepreneurial the way they go out. And actually that's, you know, really evident when I run some classes in the university. I just get the students to go out and talk to anybody, you know, old age pensioners, young people, politicians, bankers, and just get them to talk about the way their life is changing and how they're going to deal, what kind of behaviours they're using to cope with that. And more they're being entrepreneurial. So entrepreneurship is not just an economic thing. If I apply this to university, state universities in the UK are dominated at the moment, although the private sector is moving in very substantially. In the old days, the universities, traditional excellence, pure knowledge and research-based. If you produce a lot of papers and you were the dominant intellectual authority in society, you could stand alone, you got money from the government for research, your production was publicly funded. funded and so on. You're down there in a fairly certain environment, which academics like to say, that's autonomy. You know, we can do what we want in that kind of situation. But look what's happening. More and more people are going to university. In the UK, half the young population go to university, and that's happening everywhere. And the emerging middle classes around the world, in China and everywhere, in Pakistan, what I've done recently. We've got massification of higher education. We can't absorb the graduates. You know, we've got the whole employability. 47% of the graduates in the UK don't have graduate-type jobs immediately. 25% in Spain are unemployed. In the developing countries, it's a massive political problem because they can't absorb the graduates. Employability has become social mobility. Are we really making the world more mobile as a result of education? Data coming from everywhere into the university, not just from books and papers. The IT revolution behind that. Capturing knowledge in a different way. Capturing knowledge from everywhere. You know, from there's several wonderful articles called Mode 2, Ways of Knowledge Learning. And Novotny, Gibbons have written several papers about this, where really they're saying universities have to capture knowledge from everywhere. Don't just capture them from academic papers anymore. Competition, massive competition. Internally, externally. Revenue, we need money. I'm sure we need money, Krista, to keep business going. And that we're held responsible for growth. You read the European Union papers and the OECD papers, and they say universities are the engines of growth. Yeah, so basically, that's the changing world. So we're moving to a university. Is it me? It's not my bones that are creaking, I can show you. We're moving to a university, which is the University of Public Value, where there's programs, integrating research and development, highly leveraged with public-private money, and innovation-driven to cope with all of these changes that we have down in the middle. International, because you're internationally competitive. Networked to a much wider environment, get resources, also knowledge. Partnered. Interdisciplinary. I've already told you that Arizona State is totally interdisciplinary. Other universities around the world are becoming more and more interdisciplinary. You can't get money from the United States National Science Foundation for research anymore unless it's multidisciplinary. Now, just money drives everything, doesn't it? Universities become multidisciplinary because if they can't get research money. So you stop seeing the university as a narrow traditional excellence organisation to one that draws its excellence from a broader environment. So that's why university leaders flock to our programme, because they're all up in the right-hand corner now, all coping with all kinds of issues. What's the relevance? Well, in order to respond, a university, and you're going to expand on this, aren't you? The university needs enterprising people. Yes? Enterprising individuals, not necessarily in the business sense, but individuals who take initiatives, are creative, who really feel that they want to deal with a particular new life world of challenge. Of lots of, in English we have this word enterprising. I don't know whether you have it in Estonian. You do, because in some ways, in some countries, interestingly, you don't have the word enterprising. And if I talk about an enterprising person in English, to school teachers, they don't associate it at all with business. It's about an individual's creative, takes initiatives, makes things happen, goes out and does things, and so on and so forth. It's not business. So if I'm dealing with schools, I always talk about enterprising people, because they don't like entrepreneurship. You know, school teachers used to hate Mrs. Thatcher. So if I mentioned the word entrepreneurship, they would take it to think I was a supporter of Mrs. Thatcher, you know, in the old days. But entrepreneurship really is then the application of this enterprise to your organisation of any kind, not just a business, but an organisation of any kind. And you can design organisations to kill enterprising behaviour, or you can design them to create enterprise. And that's a challenge for universities. You know, if we put young lecturers in a box that says, thou shalt teach, thou shalt research, and thou shalt do that, that's actually killing enterprise. But you put them in a box that says, yeah, you shall innovate, and I'll support you in innovation and teaching and research and organisation, in the way you organise knowledge, crossing disciplinary boundaries, moving outside, and I support you to do that, then you've got a different kind of university organisation. And that's the one that the universities are buying into. If I want to persuade senior staff of the university to engage, I don't talk about entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship enterprise at the beginning, I talk about the innovative university. And they all buy that. So the language is important, and then I can say, well, to do that, you need that. So let's look at that. Just a quick flavour. I've only had 20 minutes, so a little less than 20 minutes. A quick flavour of the challenges that universities are facing. And you can do this for many other organisations, the police or nursing or whatever, but just look at some of the challenges universities are facing. Growing competition, you know, worldwide competition, excellence all around the world. For English universities, the Japanese are now teaching in Singapore in English. Yes, the Indians are teaching in English. You know, people used to come to England to the university to learn English. You don't have to do this. There are wide-ranging institutions all over the world that are outstanding. I've just been in Lahore. The University of Management Science is excellent. Really excellent. That's the Lahore School of Economics, where I was working. Fantastic students. That's frightening, isn't it? By 2020, China will have more graduates than the whole of the population of the United States. Yes? And it'll have more PhD students than undergraduates in the United States. You know? That's frightening. And this, you know, the online knowledge challenge, it's all there. Every day we're churning out knowledge and knowledge and knowledge and knowledge on the internet. It's no longer the dominance of universities that create knowledge. Content's freely available. It can be stored anywhere. They no longer have a monopoly of knowledge, universities. They have to recognise that. Every teacher's going to have to recognise that. Every teacher's going to have to change. The new communication technology, there's fundamental questions. Is the lecture redundant? Why should somebody listen to me when they can listen to a Harvard professor on a MOOC? You know? Why should they do this when they can go into the internet and discover? And as a result, universities are starting to think about perhaps we should do away with lectures altogether and get the students to go out and discover things and then facilitate their learning on the discovery basis rather than teaching. What should we teach? It's not just academics now who can teach, it's all kinds of people. You can judge a university by the number of people it brings in from outside, or experts who teach and facilitate and so on and so forth from outside, people can learn from. Look at that. We still attach massive value to publishing. Scholarly articles and nobody reads them. You know, the average reads about 200 or 300 people thoroughly. There's a lot of misreading. I'm sure Bjorn will as a professor, will note this, that people keep quoting me, but they're misquoting me. They haven't really read it. They just stick the reference in because it's Allan Gibb. You know, I can tell that 17 times. So people don't really read, but look at all the books and all the videos and all the blogs and all the intellectual stuff that's coming out from challenging the universities. And we specialise, but increasingly the synthesis in making sense of what we're doing is done by consultants and by outside organisations and so on, think tanks. So why aren't we relating to a wider set of organisations? Are textbooks out in this new, because they get dated so quickly? Should we be ever producing textbooks anymore? You know, are the traditional departments silos and boundaries to creating new knowledge? Those are some of the challenges that they're facing. And these are the answers. When I run the program, work with the program, these are all the things that I put them like that because the university is bombarded with change, and what's happening is little bits of it are responding. Not wholly often, but little bits. You know, so some people, some universities, have new promotions, some new promotion routes, new rewards for teachers, new rewards for relating outside. Some universities are taking entrepreneurial type pedagogy and curriculum right across the whole university. Some universities are now saying if we want to be global, we can no longer wrap our curriculum up into the English way of doing things. It has to be a global curriculum. It's got to appeal to the philosophies of education worldwide. We need to leverage public money with private. We need to create public value. We need to give students more ownership because they're wanting jobs and so on. We've got this massive problem of managing big data from all the way around the world. What do? We can use the world's best teachers. Social media, I mean, university staff are hopeless at social, I'm hopeless at social media. But that's the way students learn now. They learn from Facebook and YouTube and Twitter and so on, and the university doesn't use these very, very much in many cases. So all of these things, I can't go through them, but these are the kind of responses that happen across a university and demand an enterprise and entrepreneurial response, and you find individuals who are doing this within a university, and it's not brought together. So one of the things we try and do is to get people to bring these things together by taking a synergy approach. In other words, if you're concerned with knowledge transfer and exchange outside, you know, what does that mean for engaging outside stakeholders and working with them in partnership? What does it mean for research? If we're interested in internationalization, what does that mean for how we organize knowledge, the kind of relationships we have? The governance structure, one of the British universities now has as its chancellor a Chinese person, an eminent, because it wants really to engage with China. The governance structure changes. So if we want to develop local and regional development contribution, what does that mean for the way we teach entrepreneurship? What does it mean for the way we try and transfer knowledge out of the locality? What does it mean for the way we organize and place responsibility? So trying to bring those things together, getting the university to do an audit of what it's doing, and then looking for the strategic synergy. And as a result, what you get is that kind of thing, which is the university being challenged to be an entrepreneurial organization. Right, to be partnered outside, to be accountable for employability and job creation, be accountable for futures, for the sustainability of society, where in order to encourage bottom-up enterprise to be decentralized, you know, we talk to departmental heads in the university and saying, you're no longer responsible for protecting the university, your department, you're responsible for the level of innovation in that department. And so innovation bottom up, rewarding people for engagement with the outside world, for teaching, getting the alumni much more engaged because in partnership, being supportive all the way down the organisation for risk-taking, empowering the students to take more responsibility for their learning by going out and discovering, having international campuses, niching. You know, you've niched yourself as an entrepreneurial university. There are universities now that say we're a university for employment, or we're a university for social responsibility, or we're a university for internationalization. So universities are starting to niche in an entrepreneurial response to the uncertainty and complexity of the environment, and the kind of public value is the main focus. So what I'm trying to do is to give you an example how uncertainty and complexity can translate into a state organization, like the university structure in many countries, and can force change and demands more entrepreneurial organization, demands more enterprising people, and that's happening throughout the public as well as the private sector. In some ways, the big businesses are doing it less than they do. So, if you want to summarise, my half hour's almost up. That's what we're trying to do. That in any sense of trying to look at the future of innovation, there are growing sources of turbulence in the environment, internationally, locally, that more and more the entrepreneurial and enterprising concept becomes relevant because of this. There's a challenge of change. The universities in this case, or any organisation, has to start thinking about its values and its systems and its feelings about what goes on and looking at change. And there is resistance. There are a whole lot of papers from academics saying you're destroying the university. You know, the university is being destroyed by all of this. Let me go back to my little cubby hole and write academic papers forevermore. That's what I came here for. And there's an argument there. But, you know, the university then becomes a much wider stakeholder learning organisation. It's engaged right across, or the engaged university, it's right across the stakeholder board. It's engaged with government, it's engaged with business, it's engaged with social enterprise, it's engaged with community development, and it's more entrepreneurial organisation. But that's a challenge to the way the whole university is run. It's a challenge to the organisation, the leadership, in terms of allowing enterprise and risk-taking and managing change. And it needs leaders who believe, you know, really believe in there, who feel that this is what a university might be and act as role models. The most enterprising universities in the UK are those where they've got really clever, intellectual leaders who go out and demonstrate, and then everybody else follows. So I've applied this to a university, but you know, innovation now is going back at the beginning, is about that uncertainty and complexity in the future being applied to all kinds of organisations, whether the health service or the police or local government. It's a universal phenomenon. If you want innovation, you can't have it without enterprise and without individual behaviour. If anybody wants to read, I've written several papers about this, which are used for the programme, but they're all under www.entrepreneurshipuniversityleadersprogram.co.uk. You can pick up the papers from there. Some of them have been published, and that's it. You know, I could take you guys through all those case examples and do exactly the same as I've done with the university with each of those sets of people. But we don't have the time. Thank you very much indeed. Oh, ta-da.
Thank you very much for your most enlightening speech. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for your questions. So, who is the first? Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Check. There we go. Thank you, Dr. Gibb. Quick question about one of the characteristics of entrepreneurship is risk-taking. And when a university wants to start something in an entrepreneurial way, a program or a school, what can you do about the organization itself that isn't willing to take a risk? It's a risk-averse organization saying we're going to start a program in entrepreneurship. So you have this immediate resistance. How do you overcome that? How do you break through the bureaucracy?
I think the way in which, well, I can speak about that actually, the way in which we've challenged that at the university is just to take it out of the organization to focus on innovation, you know, and get people to think about the innovation that's engaged in the new world that they're in, and then take them back to the entrepreneurial concept, but then take them into the fact that if you want innovation, then you've got to have it bottom up. You know, one of the stupid things, In my own university, Durham, which is very traditional, after Oxford and Cambridge, it's the third oldest English university, and it's a very traditional university. And I run a program for staff of the university there, and we got round to this issue of, we've got all of those issues. We need innovation, right? So I said, well, as an exercise, sit in small groups and look at innovation. You need support for risk taking. And what would you do? So they all sat around and they all came up with the same answer. We need a university committee for innovation. We need a university. I just walked. I felt like walking out. We need a university. It shows the mindset of the problem you're talking about. We need a university. And why do you need a university? Because if anybody wants to innovate, you've got to make sure it's all right up there. And that's the tradition. University is associated often democracy with bureaucracy, and that stands in the way. So the real issue is pushing the responsibility for innovation down the bottom, but you need a leader, and if you haven't got a leader who's prepared to do that, then you're hiding nothing, or you can be deviant and do it. There's no real answer to that, but the problem is it's bottom up.
Thank you. So, are there any other questions? In case an Estonian entrepreneur decides to set up his business in UK, so what do you think are the most important things that he or she should consider?
In the UK?
Yes.
Well, obviously, that's a very, very broad question. I think it's very much the customers, but also the culture, ways of doing business. China, you do business through relationships. What I talked about yesterday, Quenchi, which is relationship management, so you do it through networks and relationships. You don't do it through higher formalistic ways of doing things. So I think embodying yourself in the culture, and obviously in the ease at which it is possible to set up a business. When I used to run programs for the British advisory services, for consultancy services, and the main thing often is to get the business idea down, first of all, right and tested, but down to the bare bones, not up there, but something you can start incrementally and work up, because you never know what the world's, no business plan ever tells you what the world's going to be like in the first 3 years. So the worst thing is that you start big and borrow a lot of money, and you have too much to lose and too many things to avoid. Better start incrementally and learn. Often don't make it. I know with businesses who often said, don't do it. Subcontract the making of a few and go out and try and sell it. Don't build a factory to make it until you're sure you've learned exactly what everything's about. So start incrementally. Everybody start a bit from the bottom up and learn and learn and learn right at the beginning. No matter where you are, but also to just look at the different kind of culture that you're operating in.
Thank you very much.
As a gentleman.
Okay, we have time only for one brief question then.
Last question.
Yeah.
According to your opinion, which are the 3 best worldwide existing entrepreneurial universities?
Which are the best?
According to your opinion.
I think that Arizona State University is the most entrepreneurial university I've ever seen, and I think the University of North Carolina is similar, both in America. In the UK, I think the most entrepreneurial university is Coventry, which mainly because Madeleine Atkins, the Vice-Chancellor, has become really the catalyst for massive changes, which has put the university on the map. And it's interesting that Madeleine, who's a friend of mine actually, has now become head of the whole government hefty organisation that sets the rules for universities, so there may well be some changes as a result of that. So Coventry in the UK, Hong Kong is one of the most entrepreneurial. Lahore Institute of Technology is very entrepreneurial, and so I mean every country has some examples in different kinds of cultures.
How about Babson?
What?
Babson College.
Well, Babson's, yes, but Babson's very focused on a certain kind of entrepreneurship. You know, Babson has its heritage in business entrepreneurship. It's changing now, but it's not a total university in the total sense. So I think there are different. I mean, one of the interesting things is there are niche universities. The university, like this one's a niche university focused on entrepreneurship. Yes, Babson focused on entrepreneurship. It's a niche university. When you asked me the question, I was thinking about the total university being entrepreneurial in the wider sense of having humanities departments, arts departments, and design departments, and health departments, and education departments, and philosophy departments. Putting all of those in an entrepreneurial approach, which is a big challenge. So I am trying to answer your question about the broader thing rather than the niche. But you know, what's going to happen in the future is there are going to be more and more niche universities like this one, which focus on certain aspects of entrepreneurship, certain aspects of that agenda that we put up there of innovation. I mean, there are some British universities who label themselves universities for innovation. Don't know what they really are, but they label themselves like that.
Thank you. Just 3 minutes, one more question.
It said that approximately only 5% of the whole population had it what it takes to be an entrepreneur. Do you believe that? Or do you believe that the rest of the 95% could also be entrepreneurs with the right guidance?
I think my colleagues would deal with issues like that, but I mean, I firmly believe that anybody can become an entrepreneur, but some people are more naturally entrepreneurial. I know that some people have more ambition, some people want to do different things and be more innovative than others. But anybody can actually run their own company, and I'm convinced about that. It depends on the kind of company you want to run, the kind of development. I think a lot of it has to do away with this image that somehow running your own company is risky. I mean, you know, entrepreneurs are not big risk takers because it's their money, it's their assets, it's their ego, it's their family. They're not, I mean, they learn to cope with uncertainty and complexity. But one of the interesting things is because the world's coming up on that top right-hand corner, you know, there's no guarantee of certainty anywhere. There's no guarantee of certainty. People are moving jobs, periods of unemployment, and so on and so forth. So the opportunity cost of becoming an entrepreneur, in terms of giving up security and all this kind of stuff, is falling. Because the world of work is very uncertain now. So running your own business, you know, you might as well at least try and control your own destiny by running your own business, rather than actually have your destiny in somebody else's hands who can turn around tomorrow and say you're redundant, or we're moving to Czechoslovakia, or somewhere like that. You know. So I think more people can do it, but I think more people, students particularly, need to, we talked about this yesterday a lot, need to get a real feel of what it's like. And don't teach them too much corporate business management, because it's nothing like corporate business management. Otherwise that kills. And most of the rules of corporate business management are for people who manage businesses and not entrepreneurial.
Okay, thank you. The next speaker is a distinguished, well-known Swedish economist and an outstanding scholar in the field of entrepreneurship and small firms. He has held professorships in several universities in Sweden, New Zealand, Saudi Arabia, Nigeria, Singapore, and the USA. His research focuses on methodologies in order to study entrepreneurship and the role of marketing in successful entrepreneurship and successful regions of growth, and entrepreneurship's role in this connection. If there is anything about entrepreneurship you haven't heard, this man can tell you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted and honored to welcome Professor Björn Berger.